Right. I might get started even though not everyone's on, just because we only have an hour and we have a lot to get through. First off, hi everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. Wednesday. It's almost May. It's crazy.
I know. 6 weeks. Terrible.
Well, awesome. So tell you a little bit about what I've been doing in my world. I've been helping Keegan, more like I've been doing most of the work, but I've been creating the new TRIPS protocol. So when we are able to go outside again and lead these trips and schools as well, I'm just creating kind of what that protocol will be going forward. A lot of people have asked me, so when's that date going to be? And right now we're aiming for June is kind of the date I've been telling everyone. So what that means for you all those tentative things you put for May, they need to actually be now canceled, unfortunately. So that's kind of the big hitter. Then the next hitter will be kind of creating this protocol, and I wanted to kind of just float kind of the main basis of it to you all, and then I want to open it up for feedback, what you guys think, if you think I'm missing anything, if you have any thoughts, any feelings, any criticism that this initial protocol has. I'd love to hear from my trip leaders and school instructors. So I want you all to be the first to know this is kind of where we're headed. Some of this stuff will kind of just be mandated by the state. We won't really be able to control much of this protocol. It'll kind of just be the way things are for a little while. And to be honest, some of it's going to be a huge change. It's going to feel a lot different than how it was before, but I'm just happy that we have our school instructors, we have our trip leaders, we have our participants, our members, and I think I'm just glad that we get to reopen again. So
Mute myself.
This is all given that the stay-at-home order will be lifted, just FYI. If for some odd reason we're in this state for more than May 8th and it's till mid-June, then we'll obviously shift everything. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I'm gonna actually pull up this document for you guys to just look at with me, and then we can kind of open it up. I'm just gonna go through some things line by line with you guys. And like I mentioned, some of this stuff is just the way it's gonna be because of what the state's gonna mandate. So I just wanted you guys to get eyes on it and see kind of what we're thinking going forward. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, any initial questions? Okay, cool. Let's see, share my screen. Okay. All right, so CMC protocol. So our biggest hitter, and I still have comments from people in here that I haven't updated yet. So bear with me, the different colored writing. Can everyone see this though, okay?
Yep, see it fine.
Okay, great. So the first thing is, big thing, we're gonna have to change some language of the liability waiver. The biggest of that's gonna be including some kind of language around COVID-19. So it's gonna protect the club from being sued if someone gets infected on a trip, if a trip leader gets infected, stuff like that. So that's gonna need to be included pretty heavily in our waiver. So what that means for you guys is we're gonna have to resend the waiver to everyone once we start opening things up again. And you as trip leaders and school instructors will have to make sure that those participants on your trip have signed this waiver. So not that you already don't do that, but maybe that'll mean more communication with the office and double checking that that is filed and saved away, because we do have a way to track it online. So that's the biggest thing. Any questions on that? Okay, cool. Second bullet point I have is we're going to require some new communication with participants. So a lot of you trip leaders especially and school instructors send out an email before your class or before your trip, kind of detailing the way things work and kind of what the trip plan is, plan B, kind of all these other things like where the meeting place is. The ideas are escaping my brain right now, but you know what I mean. So as part of that pre-communication to your participants, it's going to be making sure that everyone has signed that waiver. Maybe it wasn't as pertinent in previous trips that you've done with your participants, but you need to make sure that they have that waiver signed. Second thing will be symptoms. We're going to require that every participant takes their temperature, and every troop leader 24 hours before going on the trip. That'll give them enough time to report it. And then obviously if they can and they can do it right before, that's great as well. And then as Keegan put in here, this shit is going to be a part of the waiver as well. So this blue is from CSAR. He gave some thoughts, but I'm going to kind of skip through that. Second of which, we're going to be symptoms. So you're going to ask all your participants, have you felt symptoms before? And this is going to be totally on honor system because, hey, you might have a cough and be like, oh, but I've just been like dying to go on Maddie's trip, you know, to Mount Falcon, and I don't really care. And so this is going to totally be on honor system, but this is also going to be included in some waiver language that you need to divulge any symptoms you feel, some of which include cough, shortness of breath, fever, sore throat, chills, muscle aches, persistent headache, loss of taste, smell, stuff like that. So again, that's kind of the other part of symptoms. So, and then the third thing we'll want to communicate to our members is mandatory masks at all times. That can include a buff. I know it's not the best way to cover yourself, but we're going to allow buffs, some kind of total face protection, to be the way in which you kind of cover your face. So that's going to be mandatory at all times during your trip with the CMC. And then hand hygiene. So that is going to be one of our new 10 essentials. We're revamping the 10 essentials. So included in your pack will always need to be some kind of hand hygiene, and that can be hand sanitizer or hand soap, biodegradable, please. So part of what we're thinking about right now is maybe a way in which to just distribute this to all members as a little gift, but TBD on that. But hand hygiene is going to be huge. We're going to have to be super cognizant of making sure that we're really sanitized, especially with our hands. All right, next item is no carpooling. Carpooling is now prohibited unless you live in a household with someone that is going on the trip. So that's going to be a huge one. And then I'm going to get to a little bit more of the nitty gritties in a second, but that's kind of an easy one, just no carpooling. Social distancing. So we're going to require that everyone remain 6 feet apart. So, and then 6 feet apart from anyone you're encountering as well. As trip leaders, Mike had a great idea to demonstrate with maybe a trekking pole, or maybe you're 6 feet as a person and you want to demonstrate with your own body, but like you demonstrate what 6 feet is. Because I think as I made the slip up in staff meeting today, 6 inches is not 6 feet. So there's kind of this discrepancy. I even see it in Wash Park. I just went on a little walk and it's like bananas out there. So that's kind of one of the other ones. This one is going to be heart-wrenching for some of you, as it was for me. Location protocol. So we are going to plan trips 10 miles within the radius of our house. Participants can only participate in trips 10 miles from the radius of their house. So what does that mean? For instance, for me, I live in Wash Park, so that doesn't give me all the options that I love to do. You know, I love to be deep in the mountains. I love 14ers. I love to go mountain biking. So when I lead trips for the CMC, I will lead trips in an urban environment. So whether it's at Wash Park or at Chatfield Reservoir or Cherry Creek State Park. So I'll have to lead within that 10-mile radius just to abide by the state's protocol. So that's tough. That also will include, though, if there is a town that has stricter rules going on, please do not travel to that town. That will be also a guideline as well. Okay, and then, okay, I'm gonna stop there for a second because that's just like the pre-plan. Does anyone have questions on that initial? I know that's a lot of information, but questions on that initial protocol?
What's a buff?
A buff. Oh gosh. I don't have one around me right now. It's like the neck gaiter. Yes, Jeff, and you have our CMC one. Amazing.
Oh, I have one of those.
They're really thin. So actually, technically, they're not the best mode of protection, but I mean, at this point, I've seen so many people use it interchangeably that we're just gonna, as long as you have it covered, that's fine.
A couple things on that. One is they're washable and you should wash them afterward. Secondly, if you're going to pull them up, because they do slide, don't pull them up in front, pull them up along the sides.
Exactly. And you can double them over too to make them thicker.
Call that a neck gaiter.
Yes. Buff is actually the company that makes the really thin ones. So
There's a lot of different brands.
Yes, thank you.
And I've got a quick question on taking temperatures at the trailhead. I'm not sure exactly how we could administer something like
No,
that.
and that's why that was a feedback I got. Because I don't think that's very feasible. But
Unless we have one of those temperature guns, however they work.
Or
Yeah.
on your head.
Forehead.
Yeah, you just do it on your forehead.
Well, no touching, 6 foot.
yeah,
Oh,
and honestly,
that's
like,
true.
if you don't currently have a thermometer, they're like sold
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
They're
Not
hard
only
to
that,
find.
they're not entirely accurate.
Exactly. So I think the biggest thing is like take your temperature if you can, and then just like do a like self-reflection. Like, how do I feel today? Like, do I feel a little like throat gunk, or do I feel a little bit of like puffy, like the common symptoms? And we can go through what those are, but
So you're suggesting maybe just a communication with the participants or the students.
exactly. That first part was kind of
You have a fever. Do you have a fever or any symptoms, and just go around the circle or something?
exactly.
Okay.
And then to communicate it as well on a pre-trip email or pre-class email, so that they go in kind of doing that self-reflection, like, and then it's even like the source of guilt, like, oh, I do not feel that well, and he asked about it, like maybe I shouldn't come to this class, and like kind of that kind of thinking.
Maddie, this is Scott. How are we going to control this 10-mile radius for the people joining us on the trip?
Very good question. So actually my trip leader task force came up with this great idea. It's not ideal again, and it'll probably be lifted after a little while, but Mike had the great idea we're gonna nominate someone from each group, so each regional group, to screen trips for the first couple months, so that if something was like wildly out of whack, it'll be screened through a process, and that whoever's doing that will be able to be like, hey, I'm sorry, this is too far from where you live, or like, this seems out of the realm of possibility.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
the
and
trip
just-
leaders would download the roster, I think that does show the address of the participants, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
So,
Oh,
I'm
boy.
looking at this, it's probably a little bigger question, but it seems to preclude any sort of adventure travel for at least the time being. I'm thinking specifically Ham's graduation clients.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And I know
radius.
that the state ham or Denver hams, they just canceled all of their grad climbs.
Okay, so I think Pikes Peak Group needs to do that as well,
Yeah,
sounds like. Okay.
it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
No, it's hard. I hate, like, this is like the hardest job. I feel like I only bring bad news. But positive news that we get to kind of open. So, but good questions. Keep them rolling if you have them, and I can move on if we don't.
Maddie, can you
This
hear
is
me?
Suva.
Yep.
This is Steve. I'm not overly concerned about the 10-mile radius because I live right by the foothills.
Good.
However, I have been avoiding single track trails on my own walking because there's no way you can have a 6-foot distance with a person that you're passing. Unless you get off the trail, some places you're just not going to be able to get off the trail for that person to pass, depending on the terrain. Have you thought about that, or anyone else thought about that issue?
Great point, Steve. And actually that segues perfectly into the trip planning portion of this protocol. So the first was like the pre-communication to participants. I tried to organize it like that. And then the second was actually planning your trip. So with that in mind, I have participants, location, time, and activity. So when planning your location, if a trailhead is known to be crowded, plan ahead, don't go. So for instance, like you were saying, like there are some trails in Golden that are always crowded, like North Table Mountain. That place is always a zoo. So don't go there. Or if you're really like keen on leading a North Table Mountain trip, go early in the morning. I've seen one ham student, Michaela Braden, she goes on runs at like 4:45 in the morning and she doesn't see a soul. So obviously that's not ideal, but like it just being really cognizant of what is crowded and trying to go at times that are less crowded. So then here I have time. So plan trips unless people will be recreating outdoors. That means weekdays, like try to go during the weekday. Some of us have more time on the weekdays than we used to. So try to go then. And like, I know for me, like still on the weekdays, I go out to Wash Park and it's again, a freaking zoo. So go on times when it's not that crowded. Like I went this morning, not even that early, like 8:00 a.m. Totally no one there. Same with like late evenings. You can go kind of when dusk, go on a sunrise hike or a sunset hike, and try to plan on those times that are less populated than like the peak 9 to 5 hours.
Maddie, this is Jeff. I don't know if it's, as you scroll down the page, I think we ought to have some identification of medical facilities as well.
Yes.
And so know where ERs are, know how to contact sheriff, COSAR, all that. So it looks like you have some of that, but I think all medical facilities and how to contact.
For sure.
You don't, I'm sorry, you may already have that in front of you.
No, that's actually, I didn't, but that's something that needs to be re-highlighted because that is something they teach in trip leader school, that when you're creating a trip plan, you have to have where the medical facility is, where the sheriff is, but a lot of people don't really do that. So I think reinvigorating that, actually, I'm going to write that down.
Like maybe it's something that we could prepare as a club of a list.
Yeah.
Of hospitals that are, most hospitals are handling this anyway, but you know, knowing the number, how to call ahead for the hospitals and all other medical facilities.
If this is Kevin, why wouldn't you just call 911?
You could, yeah, I mean, that's a good suggestion, Kevin, but I still think it'd be useful to know where to go if you need to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at least having it, but yeah, I think the protocol would be to call 911, but then knowing where your nearest hospital is always important, but good point.
Maybe each person should also have a spot or an inReach.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I mean the leader or one person in the group.
For sure. And this kind of leads really well into activity. So I don't know about you guys. I don't know what your favorite activities are to do, but I definitely encourage you all, and this is going to be part of the protocol, to pick those activities that are less risky. So I know we all have a different risk tolerance. Some people love like crazy, like knife edge ridges. Some people love to crush it on the mountain bike on crazy downhill trails. Some people love to do those 10+ mile sea hikes. So my recommendation, and I kind of have a cute little chart here to, if you're having trouble knowing what's within your risk level versus the severity of the harm. But my recommendation, and it'll probably be the way things work more than just a recommendation, but stick to A to B hikes. Easy to moderate road bike rides, easy to moderate mountain bike rides, and trail runs. We do not recommend any backcountry skiing, any sea hike or above, any travel in a remote backcountry terrain, any advanced road mountain biking rides, any technical couloir/mountain climbs, any ski mountaineering objectives, any rock climbs, nor any travel to small mountain towns.
Unless you're already in a small mountain town, like some of us.
Exactly. Travel is key. So, and I had a good question from one of our trip leader task force members that was like, well, he lives in the Gore Range, and he was wondering why he couldn't skin on like this fire road that still has snow and lead like a backcountry tour per se. That's fine. Again, like if you're not traveling an avalanche terrain, you're not traveling the backcountry, you can use your best judgment. I just think accidents tend to happen in backcountry settings a lot more. And we really don't want to overwhelm our already overwhelmed healthcare system and frontlines workers. So it's kind of the big hitter. So let me know if you guys have questions about that. All right.
I guess I wonder a little about rock climbing. I'm thinking, you know, there's a lot of very front country rock climbing, you know, thinking of Table Mountain, Garden of the Gods, whatever. And if you're top roping, that seems, you know, top rope rock climbing is pretty darn safe.
For sure. And that's why I've been working with like Jason Anton, who runs his own mountain guiding company, and he's been wrestling with this issue too, because he has clients. And we can talk offline about it, Greg, because I think, yeah, again, if you are double checking, triple checking your systems, and it's the risk, you find the risk is actually a lot lower than you going out on like a B or C hike, then yeah, we can talk through that.
Yeah, I would be concerned about like the sharing of gear and just touching things, because that's sort of inevitable with rock climbing.
Totally. Yeah. And that again, yeah. God, you guys are so smart. But yes. Yeah. I think, yes, the more we can kind of like you were saying, keep ourselves and our germs isolated, the better. And I think that was the original reason we kind of excluded rock climbing from a recommended activity.
Okay.
Hey, Maddie, this is Jenny. Back on your list of recommend versus do not recommend, where does backpacking fit in that list?
Great question. I actually didn't add that. So backpacking, unfortunately, will be a do not recommend. For now, I was given the not go ahead to do any overnights. Just because again, it's like the touching of gear and the sharing of tents, and obviously that can be mitigated in certain ways. And again, we can talk offline if you have special scenarios, but with the 8 participant, actually I haven't gotten to that yet, but with the 8 participant minimum, how did I miss that? It's up there.
I was going to ask that question. How
Yeah.
the numbers, yeah.
Yes, so there's an 8 participant minimum, but maximum, thank you, geez. Oh gosh, I've been doing that all day. 6 inches, 6 feet, I mean, birds and bees, I don't know. Okay, anyway. So, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. So yes, backpacking overnights. So maybe if you were able to limit your group sizes to like half that, then we could talk. But I think as of right now, when we first open, let's talk offline because I know you have a class, but I'm thinking that they're going to want you to postpone it.
Yeah, and overnight too would be kind of unrealistic if you have to stay within 10-mile radius anyway.
Well, absolutely. But I guess my point is it's not on either list, and you should probably have that on a list so you don't get questions.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you for that, Jenny. So then the other big one is wilderness first aid, and we're still working out the details on this, but as leaders and school instructors, usually you all have wilderness first aid. So this gets tricky because like a lot of people have asked, like, should I do CPR or should I treat a patient if they are like, if they're all of a sudden feeling symptomatic? And like, I think the biggest thing is like before the trip, make sure you both get consent. So both sides need to be able to really clearly state, yes, please give me, just have that conversation ahead of time. And again, we don't know what that looks like quite yet. We're still working with some health officials to kind of get the details ironed out with that, because I think even some wilderness first aid companies are trying to figure that out in this time. So more details about that will be coming out. So that will be kind of more information later on.
Maddie, could we get that in the waiver that they sign? That way it's not just a verbal, nobody
Yes.
else heard.
Definitely. Definitely in the waiver they sign. And then the biggest thing too, as part of wilderness first aid, you learn like the 3 don't get anything on me principle. So gloves and masks, 100%. So I know sometimes, like, I don't know, in my wilderness first responder, we just used rubber bands to like signify gloves. Gloves are absolute mandatory. So if you don't already have those in your first aid kit, make sure you get some. And then masks, obviously, but that's already in the protocol above. So, whew, man. So that is the protocol thus far. I feel like I missed something, so I'm just gonna, oh no, I didn't. Participants.
I have a question, Wayne.
Go ahead.
What about bathrooms and use of? I think it's a dangerous thing.
Yes, and most bathrooms, to my knowledge, are gonna remain closed.
Oh, that's not true at all.
Oh, really?
I was just on a bike ride down in Douglas County and they were all open.
Really? That's a great question. I will add that to here.
Maddie, backing up to the, I thought you said 3 items, is you want a mask, gloves, and probably eyewear, something to protect your eyes.
For wilderness first aid?
Yes, because it can be transmitted through your eyes also.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, this is John Walters.
Awesome. So then I kind of lay out here, like what's a requirement versus a recommendation. As you'll see, most of this stuff is going to be a requirement. And that's just, again, we're just trying to be conservative and we're also just trying to abide by the state's rules. A lot of this wasn't really like, we're just trying to do what we're supposed to be doing. Recommendations are the time in which you plan a trip. So I know for some of you who live in kind of the quieter regions, your time on when you go out to a certain location isn't going to matter too much. So that's more a recommendation for those of us that do live in really crowded areas. Does that make sense? Cool. And then activities that are lower risk. So kind of like we've already been mentioning, these activities are just kind of a recommendation. It's almost like in the middle, because like Rick was saying, a really mellow skin and non-avalanche terrain, I'd say is totally fine. And like, you just, again, have to be very cognizant of your own risk level and just not overwhelming any facilities that you'd need if something were to happen. So, but everything else is pretty much mandatory. And then I kind of have given some scenarios. So liability waivers. So it's basically yes, no, or maybe if the trip is a go. So yes, the trip is a go if all waivers are signed and filed. Pretty easy. If none of the participants sign the waiver, then no, you wouldn't go on the trip. Some of these are really stupid. I just wanted to lay it out like really clearly. So again, if anyone wants to look at this in more detail, I can send it. But I don't think it's basically just outlining what I mentioned above. Okay, with all that being
Maddie,
said.
this is, Jeff, just to be clear, this is still in draft form.
Yes, oh yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna do these adjustments from these people that gave me some edits, and then we're not gonna roll this out to everyone until next week. I just wanted our trip.
Mandy, this is Steve again.
Could you remind us on the timeline for this? So this is a great protocol, but what is the timeline again, or the timing that you're thinking this will go into effect, and how long? And then what's your process for revisiting?
For sure. So timeline, June is when we're thinking. It's all though based on what the state is going to do. So already our order has lasted till May 8th now. And so we were already pushed back a little bit. So like we were thinking like June 1st, that's our opening day, but we're already pushing that back. So we're aiming for June.
Pushing it back to what?
We don't know. I've been told that I can't even like give out a date because we have no idea right now. We'll know probably in the next 2 weeks. But yeah, mid-June, I'd say.
This is Jeff. I just want to throw in, we really need to, as an organization and in society, watch what happens with infection trends. You know, because this easing off may result in more cases, it may not. And I think that's going to inform a lot of our dates and so forth.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly, Jeff. Great point. And to that, to answer the rest of Jenny's question, that was Jenny, right? Yes. I can't see you all right now, but so we'll revisit it if the state changes anything. So say the state lessens the restrictions even more and you get like a 20-mile radius, then we'll change it to that. But we're trying to be within the state guidelines, but be a little bit conservative so that we're kind of an example in outdoor recreation. Again, like Jeff said, if the infection rate skyrockets again, we could totally close back up again and cancel the rest of the programming for the summer. But again, we're just kind of trying to manage what the state says and push as early as we can, but also be kind of conservative, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Maddie, this is Steve again.
Mm-hmm.
I'll need to talk with you offline about some things. About half of my trips are Denver group trips and the other half are conservation trips. Most of them come under the purview of the state.
Okay.
And we've got some other issues in there. And I don't want to get those trips caught up under Denver group review when Denver group review would not be appropriate for those trips.
Okay. Sounds good.
I hate to ask this question, but one item that's on the state's stay safer mandate, and a lot of us fall into this category, unfortunately, including me. They're kind of telling people that are of a certain age group to stay home. And I think a lot of what the CMC's plan here is probably liability driven. Have you guys been thinking about that at all? I don't want to exclude myself from doing anything, but it's out there. It's in the stay safer order.
You know, and that's a good point, Jeff. Maybe Maddie and some of the screening questions ought to be pre-existing conditions, including age, but asthma, diabetes, heart issues, high blood pressure, that kind of thing.
Jeff,
more
could
than
you,
just symptoms.
this is Scott, could you say a little more about that, this age limit? Because I'm not familiar with that from the state.
I believe it's either 60 or 65. They're recommending people that are in the at-risk groups, which includes people that have even much younger people that have any kind of compromising conditions, and also people of a certain age on up.
Yeah, right now it's a
Thanks.
must stay home. Not that everybody's paying
so yeah,
attention to
actually,
that.
we have not thought about that. Probably because a lot of our members are in the upper category. But again, this is all given that we moved to that safer at home order, and that things do lift. But it's a really good question that we haven't really considered, to be honest. We were just going to open it up to everyone and not, and just have those questions in place and not really go by age. But I'm going to definitely bring it up now.
Yeah, I'm
Maddie,
sorry I
be
raised
sure
that
to,
question, but
yeah, no,
it's critical, Jeff. And again, pre-existing conditions, Maddie, I think,
yeah.
I don't know how we deal with that, self-identified, but you know,
but it's
whether
kind of like
those
your
are-
medical question you ask your participants, like, hey, do you have a medical history? It's already embedded in our trip leader process, so I think it's an
right.
easy add in.
I just don't know if it would rule people out as a screening question.
True, but I guess we're already trying to kind of do that rule.
Yeah.
I would hope that when you have these screening questions for participants, that it becomes a self-limiting factor for the participants themselves, and people are generally honest about things like that.
Maddie, this is Scott. Of course, our little group, we're going to have to be maybe a little more careful because the majority of our 900 members are over 60.
Yeah. Yes, no, for sure. These are all great things that I hadn't really considered. But I think, again, as long as the honor system is in place, this new waiver language is in place, I think we'll be mostly covered. But again, it's something I'll have to probably ask. I'm going to quickly, someone has a couple great things are in the chat quickly that I'll address. So 2 houses, people that have 2 homes. You mean for the mile radius? Then yeah, you can do either home, but not combined, if that makes sense.
I think if the state would be basically your primary residence.
Yes, exactly. And then primary residence is the 10-mile radius. Thank you. And then can we encourage call search and rescue cards? So if something does happen, yes, definitely. We sell COSAR cards. So I would encourage all of you to donate. All the proceeds go to them, and I would encourage you to buy them. We have them online because it's definitely something that will be very beneficial to you if you do get into a tricky situation. 8-person limit is just too large. Need to consider number of cars we'll be bringing to trailheads. So yes, so when we move to the safer at home order, the 10-person limit is what they're saying for group size as a state. We're reducing that to 8, and that includes the trip leader. So it should be 7 plus you, or 6 plus 2 co-leads. Is this too large, or need to consider the number of cars? So I'm hoping that in the protocol that you don't choose a place that is already infiltrated with a ton of cars. So you're choosing a place that is less populated. So I'm hoping that that is not a risk, if that makes sense. But again, I know some trailheads are really small. So, but yeah, 8 is right now the number we're going with once we move to that order. But we did mull that over for a while. I think if you're worried about the car situation, then that's something that you'll get to decide as the leader. Maybe you want to make it like a 5-person or 4-person trip. Okay, one question. And again, 8 people is a lot of people to keep track of when 6 people apart. Great question. So for those of you that aren't on the chat, there was a comment. I also think that 8 people is a lot to keep track of when you're 6 feet apart from people. So yeah, if you're 6 feet apart from 8 other people, that's almost like a mile long. I mean, it's not, but that's a long distance from people. So I think, yeah, having a lower limit is better. And yes, 6 feet should be the minimum that you are apart from people. All great things. Again, this is still in the introductory phases, but definitely things to consider. I'll mull that over with Keegan because I think, yeah, if you have 8 people, it's going to be really hard to abide by this social distancing rule of 6 feet. And then, Uwe, you said you're going to make it just 4-person max, including you. That's way easier to manage. That's fine. And you as leaders get to decide what you're comfortable with. Like if you don't want to manage a group of 8 with everyone being 6 feet apart, then don't do 4 people or do 5 people. Do what you think is best. And then Tom, you came in with what is the 10-mile thing I was talking about. So that's basically what the state mandated as proper etiquette to only travel to recreate 10 miles within your house. So for me, I live in Wash Park, so I can only recreate in this 10-mile radius of my house. That is also true going forward for our trip leaders. You can only lead a trip 10 miles within your house, and participants can only come to a trip that is 10 miles within their house.
Boy, that's not all that far, is it?
It sure isn't.
I can't even go downtown.
And that's only for recreating, and that's only CMC, just because we're trying to be an example. Obviously, like, we don't control what you guys do personally with your own friends and family, so this is just CMC policy.
Hey, Maddie, it's Jeff. One other thing to add is symptoms. There's been a new set of symptoms identified this week. The list you have pretty much covers it. One additional one is repeated shaking with chills.
Oh, okay.
You have chills, but maybe just
Yeah, let me see.
include that.
Loss of smell and taste.
Yeah. There's another one that's coming up with toe issues, but I don't
yeah,
think that's
I've heard of
so
that one.
pervasive.
My friend had
Yeah.
that. Kevin had the question, if you live in the suburbs, but you have a co-leader who lives in Idaho Springs, is the 10-mile limit from Idaho Springs? Oh my God. You guys, it's like trivia night.
You knew somebody was going to come up with that one.
Totally. I didn't. It stumped me. So if you live, so
wouldn't that be
again,
distance?
This will
Hey,
be
distance.
Hey, Maddie, just say no. It's okay.
Well, no,
Yeah.
this will be that I have an answer for you, and it's you can only co-lead with people who live kind of close to you.
Well, I would think that it's 10 miles for any participant. So none of the participants can go more than 10 miles. Isn't that it?
Yeah.
So if, you're probably more than 10 miles from Idaho Springs, it would rule out the two of you meeting anywhere.
Exactly. Like you wouldn't be able to co-lead together. Yeah.
They'd have to all live in Idaho Springs anyway, because Clear Creek County is closed to anyone except Clear Creek County residents
Yes.
for now.
Well,
Good
Jeff,
point.
a great point.
Good point.
Do not travel to places that are closed.
Yeah.
I know I don't really need to make that clear. You guys are all really smart, but like, just don't travel to places that are closed.
On that topic, is there a way to create an easily accessible list of what communities are open and closed? And 'cause it's changing pretty rapidly, and trying to keep up with it. I mean, I know kind of, on about a couple hours notice, I live in Palmer Lake, and they shut down all the town trailheads. Basically just put up signs and tapes one Saturday morning. So, I just wonder if we could create, when June comes around, some kind of resource so we could see, hey, this is what different communities are doing.
So, Greg, the Cotrex map thing is a great resource that's kept up to date for trailhead closures.
Okay.
I was checking that out after the frontline meeting that was a Zoom meeting that was last week, and that was mentioned, and they're doing a nice job on that, showing trailhead closures, both the ones that are closed and the ones like in Jefferson County where some of the trailheads may only be closed on busy times.
I'll take a look at that. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
And one thing we are thinking of doing, quickly, I'm going to answer Cheryl's question. What if I start a bike ride? So I'll read it normally so you guys can hear me. What if I start a bike ride 10 miles from my home and the ride takes me outside of that radius? What if I
assume it's trailhead.
And the ride takes me outside? Oh, good question. So it's more than 10 miles.
Yeah,
So
we talked about that at
that
the
doesn't
lead- at the
matter.
meeting,
So it's
yeah.
10 miles from the trailhead. But great question. So obviously, like, I know you guys are all distance hounds, so you go really far distances, but that's okay. As long it's 10 miles from your trailhead. But that's a great point, because I think that will come up for a lot of people. Shoot, what was I gonna say? I don't know.
I think we're talking about the closures for public lands.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we're planning on creating a trip leader toolkit. So, because this is a lot, and like even me, I could hardly keep it straight, and I wrote the thing. So, I think we're hoping to give you all just a toolkit. So like The closed regions will be included in there. This protocol will be included in there. Hospitals, like Jeff mentioned, like all the nearest hospitals will be included in there. If we get that soap, we'll give you guys each like a little thing of soap. So we're hoping to kind of launch like a trip leader toolkit. So when you do start planning these kind of strange trips, you'll be able to just kind of refer to that toolkit and be like, okay, so I can do this and I could do that and I can go at this time and I can add this many people. So it'll make it a little easier on you guys. But yeah, again, use us as a support. If you're confused and you're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, like you can always use me, you can use Emily, you can use Keegan if you want. Like we're here to help you guys because you guys are the life and blood and we need you, especially when we start to reopen. So it's going to take some teamwork for sure. So.
Hey, Maddie. David Sanders. My question may be a little premature. I mean, I know this is kind of in draft form and you're still working it out. What are the plans, though, to kind of communicate these protocols to the CMC members in general?
Great question. So we haven't really thought that far yet. It'll probably be an email from Keegan. And then some follow-up probably, from whether it's me or another staff member, to kind of make sure that everyone is going to abide by them and then sign that waiver, because we have to make sure that everyone re-signs this new waiver with the new language. So we're hoping to roll it out like that. We also have a staff member right now making calls to all members, and hopefully she'll be able to include that in her calls. They're just checkup calls to make sure people are doing okay. But that's kind of the very skeleton of the plan right now. Thanks for asking, Mel.
So Maddie, is the waiver complete?
No, not at the moment. We're working on the language still.
Okay.
Again, you guys are seeing like the first, besides like a couple other people in the Trip Leader Task Force. This is really in the works still. I just wanted you guys to get eyes on it. I think your input is valuable. So
We need to turn it over to the lawyers next.
exactly.
Let them have their way with this.
Or the insurance company.
Yes, and that's the other great thing is we're getting a couple of these really key organizations like Colorado Search and Rescue. Hopefully we're going to get Golden Fire Department, a couple other companies to endorse this so that we're backed a little bit by some really key outdoor resources. So that's why I'm trying to get as many eyes on it as I can so that we can tell people, yeah, we hit this one hard. We really tried to have it out in the open and get it critiqued as much as we could. So.
Hey, Maddie, this is Kevin. There was a Denver Group Trip Leader School being considered for May the 30th. Are you saying that that needs to be pushed back into June or July or August?
Yes, it either needs to go online or it needs to be pushed back.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Maddie, if I could follow up real quickly too about the question of lawyers and insurers that Wayne brought up. We have on the board a risk management committee that includes lawyers, that includes the club's insurer, and a number of other people in this area. So they're involved in the design of the language for the liability waiver. So there's a lot of cooks involved in this.
That's a great, yeah, I need to get eyes. I told Keegan that I was going to try to reach out to them to get some eyes on it because we need some help with I need help with the waiver language for sure. Thank you for that.
I have a question, Maddie, and you may have already talked about this. Got on this a little later, but when it comes to barbecue, picnics, is there any direction at this point?
Yeah, great question. 8 people is still the participant limit for us. And then if you can, it's kind of very similar. Events will still be the same protocol. if you can wear the protective face wear, like the buff or the mask, and then 6 feet apart, but you can still manage the barbecues. Obviously, it'll look a little different, but that's definitely going to be something that will just kind of fall under this protocol, if that makes sense. But if you have specific questions about what that would look like.
So an annual barbecue picnic would normally have, 25 to 40 people. So that is not going to be acceptable, is what it sounds like.
Not in this first rollout. Like a lot of these people have mentioned, as soon as the state lifts some of these restrictions a little bit and loosens them, then we'll be able to open things up like that. But unfortunately, it will just have to fall under this protocol going forward. But good question. And for those of you that are a little bit nervous about leading hikes in the urban setting, I have some ideas too of like little series we could do, like a flora and fauna series or a bird watching series, or I have a mountain mindfulness series that I've been doing. There are ways in which to make it a little bit creative. So I'm happy to, again, chat offline about that and ways in which to make it fun, even though we're going to kind of be in this kind of weird world for a little while.
And Maddie, this is Jeff again. One other comment, just to let everybody know about this. The Wilderness Medical Society is putting on a webinar in about a week and a half on how to teach and perform wilderness first aid under COVID. So I'm participating in that. I think some other CMC folks are too. I have no idea what they're going to say. I know Rachel from Backcountry Pulse is going to be on it. So that might help us inform some of the first aid issues as well.
Yeah, glad you brought that up actually. So Rachel's going to actually relay a lot of that information to us, which will help inform some of these decisions. So I wasn't planning on sitting in on it, but I think Keegan might. But yeah, great point. Hold on, I'm going to read some of these questions while you guys think on that. Assuming the 8-person limit carries into the summer, should we plan on reducing our roster for existing full trips by order of sign up? Latest sign up gets dropped first. So I'm assuming you have pre-planned trips for later in the year. Yep. Okay. Yes. Do it by latest sign up, and yeah, you can just reach out and be like, I'm sorry, this is the protocol going forward. If you get any flack for that, you can refer them to me if you'd like. And then, oh, thanks, Tom. So yes, I hope that answers that. Other options too for fun activities is you guys could do bike rides to go pick up like a takeout order, and you guys could go have a picnic. Like there are ways in which to kind of make this a little bit more fun. So let me know, like I said, if you have any other ideas. Great question. Linda just said, what are the plans for the YET programs? They will also kind of fall under this category. So they're going to try to reduce some group sizes. They're very dependent also on the state and what programs are going to be like for youth, because it's a lot of restrictions are tightening for that kind of thing and are actually changing like dramatically. So that's still up in the air a little bit about what they're going to do, but I'm actually talking with them tomorrow to go over this protocol, because it'll definitely inform some of their decisions for camps and day trips this summer. And then Britt asked, when do these new protocols go into effect? Can we lead trips now under these guidelines? So no, sorry. June is kind of our time frame right now. We're hoping for June. We have no idea though exactly when that will be in June yet. Initially, like, again, I feel like things change so drastically every day. So we were initially thinking June 1st, but we're now thinking a little bit later in June, and we're kind of just waiting on the state to hear when this actually gets lifted, what it looks like a little bit. So I'll keep you all informed though, as long as you guys still keep reading my emails. I'll keep you guys all informed.
Maddie, it's Jeff. Let me just add one other thing, that the board, particularly the executive committee of the board, has been meeting every week. And one of the things that we're talking about is really trying to have CMC set the pace, set the guidelines and what it's going to look like for other groups. There's been a lot of communication with our sister organizations, and including the Seattle Mountaineers. But we really hope that CMC will be a leader that other organizations and, you know, hikers and just everybody's going to look to. So we're spending a lot of time, and Maddie in particular is doing a wonderful job spending a lot of time thinking about this stuff.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, wow, thank you. Yeah, like Jeff mentioned, we're really trying to come up as the leader. CMC has been ahead of the curve this whole time with bringing out protocols and having things in place for people. So we're really kind of just trying to keep that momentum going and to come out as a leader in all this, which will be really awesome. You guys will be our frontlines workers, as someone was saying, so I love it. And then Linda had a question, considering CPR breaths, shouldn't leaders carry a barrier? Great question. Again, we're kind of still working on the wilderness first aid protocol. So after that meeting next week, that will probably be a little bit more set in stone. So I will keep you updated on wilderness first aid. It's a really tricky one because we don't really have total control over it. Awesome. Well, we're close to being up in time. Again, guys, thank you for coming on this call and helping me out a lot. I love having your eyes and your input and your thoughts and feelings and feedback. So thank you so much. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for listening. If you have any looming questions, like any nightmares at night and you want to reach out, please feel free. I'm around, not going anywhere. So please feel free to email me any questions you may have. Like I mentioned, as far as timeline, we're looking at rolling this out next week to tell the members, and then we're hoping to start this protocol in June once everything is lifted, all given that the state is on the same trajectory that we think it is. So keep watching those things, keep staying safe, keep staying healthy, and we'll hopefully see each other really soon. Well, 1 month, but.
Thanks, Maddie. Take care.
Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Maddie.
Everybody stay safe.
Please.
Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Maddie.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for being there for us, Maddie.
Of course. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff, I've been doing that exact thing. That's funny. I'm just reading through this. I've been doing a lot of road rides, and I don't think I can ride to Cherry Creek State Park anymore. It's like driving me insane. So I definitely did an early morning Mount Falcon like last week.
Awesome.
So I'd say that's okay.
Lair the Bear is good too. Less crowded.
Oh, I love Lair the Bear. So you're doing Little Scraggy. Nice. It's totally dry now?
I don't know. I haven't been up there yet.
Nice.
see.
Yeah, there's still some like room for really fun rides, and you can go places that not a lot of people are at. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to.
if you stay off the Front Range, I think it's
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Colorado Springs is some fun riding. That's where I went to college. So, but it's fall now. So,
All right. Well,
cool.
I'll just head up there and see what happens.
Yeah, wait, let me know how it goes. I'll be
Okay.
interested to hear.
I will. I'll
Okay.
keep you updated on my conditions.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Maddie.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
See you around.
Bye.